ICU caters. So it is wise and safe to keep blood sugar level near below 150 milligram per deciliter in an ICU patient. Now, bowel care is very important. There should be a regular assessment of the bowel because there might be paralytic ileus due to surgical handling, due to use of opioids, or due to electrolyte imbalance. On the other side, if there is diarrhea, then it can lead to electrolyte imbalance, dehydration, hemorrhoidal irritation, resulting in anemia, and because of electrolyte imbalance, the patient might also go into delirium. Again, if there is constipation, then it will lead to patient discomfort, intolerance to feeding, and delirium. So, daily the bowel has to be assessed, and if there is anomaly, then that has to be taken care of. Then coming to the indwelling catheters, uh, a lot of catheters have to be put in ICU patients, such as central line or arterial or venous catheters, urinary catheters. So these things cannot be avoided. For some reason or the other, they have to be put. But our endeavor should be to remove these as soon as possible, because they carry a lot of risk of nosocomial infections such as COTI, that is catheter associated urinary tract infection, and CLABSI, that is central line associated bloodstream infection. So as soon as the function of these catheter is over, they are no more required, we should remove them as soon as possible. So daily we have to assess the patient whether these catheters are required further or not. Then de-escalation. De-escalation means whatever drugs, particularly antibiotics, that we had been given for last few days, if they are not required, or if we can switch to a lower category of drugs, then we must do it as soon as possible. So this is also to prevent antibiotic resistance, and this is also to prevent the harmful effects of the drugs. So to facilitate this, there must be a clear mention of the day of starting of a particular drug in the case sheet of the patient, and what is the day of present administration of that drug, and what is the expected day of stopping or intended duration of the use of these drugs. So what all I had told just now, these all, if compiled together, this goes to make a fast hug bid. So fast hug bid is, what is that? It is nothing. It is just a mnemonic to remember what all I have discussed in the previous few slides. So just to summarize, uh, in fast hug bid, F is for feeding, A for analgesia, S for sedation, T for thromboprophylaxis. Then in hug, H is for head up position, U is for ulcer prophylaxis, G for glycemic control, S is for spontaneous breathing, B is for bowel care, I is for indwelling catheter removal, and D is for drug de-escalation. So this fast hug bed is not essential to be followed in each and every patient in an ICU, or each and every component of fast hug bed need not be practiced in each and every patient. For example, feeding. This varies from patient to patient, and we might not consider feeding right from the day one of admission of a patient to ICU. Similar is the case with thromboprophylaxis. So we have to decide on a case to case basis that what components of fast hug bed we need to use in a particular patient. However, all components of fast hug bed must be kept in mind when attending to any ICU patient, so that no fundamental component is missed. Maybe we do not require to utilize one of the components in a particular patient, but we do have to keep that component in mind, so that out of so many things we do not miss one of these important things. Secondly, this also emphasizes a team effort, as these components are not specific to any particular healthcare worker, but it is the physician, the nurse, the physiotherapist, the nutritionist, and the respiratory therapist combined. It is a teamwork. So any one of the team might take care of each one of the team members should keep this fast hug bid in mind whenever attending a patient, and they must follow it as a routine so nothing is missed. This is just a summary of a fast hug bid. So this fast hug bid, this can just be used as a mental checklist in a simple way, and this enhances the efficiency, safety, and efficacy of care of an ICU patient. And regular use of this fast hug bid at bedside eventually becomes a spontaneous thought process while evaluating ICU patients. So this was a very short topic, and this was all about fast hug bid, and I have tried to explain in a very simple way and in a way in which everyone can remember this fast hug bid. So that's all from my side.
Any questions from audience for Dr. Ankit? Okay, Dr. Ankit, how do we follow this mnemonic in ICU practically? Because every patient will not require everything, like you said, every component of this whole mnemonic.
No, no, this is just to whenever we are assessing a patient, this mnemonic is just to memorize that we go FAST, whether that thing is required in a patient or not. So it is just to suppose we are looking at the patient in a jumbled up way. So one of the component might get missed, especially when there are a lot of patient in the ICU. Somewhere a CPR is going, somewhere the patient is getting intubated. The physician has to run from here to there, or like in present scenario, like there are so many ICUs with a lot of new staff, non-ICU staff working there. So in a confused state of mind, one of the component might get missed. So whenever we are on the rounds, we just mentally calculate just like 1 2 3 4 FAST, whether this is required, if this is required, whether this is being followed in this, and if one of the component is not required, then it is okay. Like if we talk of thromboprophylaxis, so ideally thromboprophylaxis, some form of heparin should be given to a patient. But if that patient is having if patient is has a potential of bleeding, then we avoid thromboprophylaxis. So in that particular patient, T won't be applicable. But we do have to keep this T in mind so that if it had been required, it would not have been missed.
Okay,
So
Dr.
this
Ankit,
is, yeah.
do you actually, like, out of all these components, do you assign these responsibilities to a particular healthcare worker in ICU practically? This is what I'm asking. Like, we have everything, you have everything in your mind about fast bid. Now, have you assigned that, let us say, feeding has to be inquired from the nursing staff, or bed sore, about bed sores, we have to inquire from the nursing staff, and XYZ thing has to be expected from a resident. Actually,
Yes.
this is for somebody who is about to start ICU and who is going to manage the ICU. So
Yes.
it is
So,
for them. Now, how do you practically do it? Yeah.
yeah, your question is very good. See, it depends. It depends whether we are working in a regular ICU, like we have an existing ICU, or we are having working in a temporary makeshift ICU like these days for COVID. So in a regular ICU, each team member knows his role. Like the uh, nursing staff will be knowing whether to give nutrition or to not, if there is any development of bed sore or not. When the physicians come on rounds, they show that this bed sore is developing or it is getting deteriorated, something like that. Similarly, the nutritionists, they regularly come to the ICU and write down the nutrition chart of the patient. But when we are working in COVID ICU, which are makeshift ICUs, then it is difficult to explain each and everything, the role. So means in that the division of labor is not practically possible, and that is one of the goals of such kind of classes, that all the healthcare workers attend and they are aware. Most of the people in new ICUs, they do not know what is fast hug bed. So this is one of the goals of these lectures, to make them aware. So if we are not working in a regular ICU, then definitely uh, our residents or we ourselves, we have to take care of all these things one by one.
Okay. So any other question from audience regarding practical aspects or maybe theoretical aspect? So there are no questions. So I thank Dr. Ankit for presenting this thing in a very simple way, and I hope that everybody is able to follow this thing practically also, and we come out of the pandemic soon, and we do not have to manage it in makeshift ICUs. So thank you, Dr. Ankit.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you,
for
Dr.
presenting.
Puneet, for giving an
Thank you.
opportunity to speak. Thank you.